What is up, everybody, and welcome back once again to the channel. And before we get into today's video, make sure to subscribe and sack that like button. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing my post week 4 NFL power rankings, and without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 32, I have the Houston Texans, who just got outmatched by the Chargers. They were able to make it a respectable final score, but overall, the Chargers just proved they were the better team. Coming in at number 31, the Washington Commanders, and Carson Wentz is not a starting NFL quarterback at this point. Coming in at number 30, I have the Saints, who had a heartbreaking loss, and a couple of questionable calls in that game by the refs. But overall, the Saints had opportunities to win, and it ended with a double doink missed field goal. Coming in at number 29, the Panthers, which is one of the most dysfunctional teams I think I've ever seen. But they did beat the Saints, so I have them ahead of the Saints. Coming in at number 28, I have the Raiders, who got a win. They beat the Broncos. Raiders are still in deep shit. Coming in at number 27, I have the Lions, who were in the highest scoring game of the year against the Eagles and lost 48-45. Look, whenever your defense is allowing 48 points to anybody, it's a problem. But if it's to Geno Smith, look out. And I get Dan Campbell seems like a pretty fun coach and a cool guy, and the Lions seem to have a bunch of cool guys on their team. But at some point, it's not about cool. I mean, you can say Dan Campbell's doing everything right, but except winning. Disappointing start for the Lions this season. Coming in at number 26, I have the Steelers, who things are starting to look very grim for, at least on the bright side. They've finally moved on from the Mitchell Trubisky experiment and brought in Kenny Pickett, who threw 3 interceptions. 2 of them weren't really his fault. One was a Hail Mary on the final play, and the other was a tipped ball. But, they got some tough games looking ahead. They can easily find themselves at 1-7 looking at that schedule. Coming in at number 25, I have the Bears, and it really looks like they have middle schoolers out there trying to block for Justin Fields. So Justin Fields, I think, is a very talented quarterback, and if drafted somewhere else, could be a top quarterback in this league. Very sad. Coming in at number 24, I have the Colts, who lost in a big game against the Titans, got off to a really slow start and slowly inched their way back into the game, but ultimately lost. Coming in at number 23, I have the Browns, who just had a heartbreaking loss to the Falcons of all teams, and the Browns deserve every miserable second of it. Coming in at number 22, I have the Patriots, who had a 4th round pick quarterbacks playing for them at Lambeau against the Packers, and were able to send the game to overtime and almost pull it out. The Patriots have a heart, but it feels like this is the story of the post-Tom Brady era Patriots. They have heart. They could have won this one. They could have won that one. And they don't win any of them. Coming in at number 21, I have the Jets, who are now 2-2, got a big win over the Steelers. But don't be fooled by this, Jets fans. You still suck. Coming in at number 20, I have the Broncos, who that offense just looks terrible. Javonte Williams is out for the year. The one bright spot of their offense, Melvin Gordon, walking out of press conferences because he can't take the truth. So they're going to need him to step up. But the Broncos really do not look good. But like I've said, I think it's going to take time for this offense to get into high gear. Coming in at number 19, I have the Seahawks, who are now 2-2. Got a win against the Lions, which, that was a wild game. Their defense continues to look bad, but their offense continues to score some points, so we'll see. Coming in at number 18, I have the Falcons. The biggest revamped team from last year to this year. Over 50% of the players on that team weren't on the team last year. The Falcons are at 2-2, and they play the Buccaneers next week. If they win, they're in first place. Isn't that crazy? Coming in at number 17, I have the Titans, who have gotten back-to-back big wins, and they are back in the thick of things. I still think this team has a lot of issues, but those were 2 back-to-back big wins. Coming in at number 16, I have the Cardinals, who got the win against the Panthers on the East Coast. An actually pretty solid win for them. They got a big one coming up next week against the Eagles. Coming in at number 15, I have the Giants, one of the worst 3-1 teams I can remember, but they are 3-1, and it's like all the teams I've already mentioned are kind of inconsistent. So, the big difference between this Giants team and previous Giants team is Daniel Jones is not losing them the games. He's not churning the ball over. Coming in at number 14, I have the Bengals, who got a big win on Thursday Night Football. They had to play a little bit dirty to be able to get it, but, that's how it goes, I guess. Coming in at number 13, I have the Chargers, who needed a win desperately after a couple of losses, but, I'm still not really impressed by them beating the Texans by 10. Coming in at number 12, I have the Jaguars, who moved up a spot despite them losing. They played the best team in football, the only unbeaten team in football, and got off to a 14-0 lead. And if not for just a couple of errors here and there, they could have walked out of there with a win. This team has shown some major improvements. Coming in at number 11, the Rams, who last night on Monday Night Football could not get anything going offensively. In fact, they never scored a touchdown, just 3 field goals. The O-line is terrible. They have no running game. And in the receiving game, really, all they're looking for is Cooper Kupp. They need OBJ back desperately. Coming in at number 10, I have the 49ers, who got a huge win last night, and now they're first place in the NFC West, but it almost makes the whole thing more comical. They've won 7 out of the last 8 against the Rams, yet the Rams won the one that mattered most. Coming in at number 9, the Buccaneers, who their offense, was able to pat stand throughout most of that game, but still struggles were apparent for them. And their defense, I get they allowed 41 points, but it's against, I think, the best offense in football. But the Buccaneers definitely have issues on offense. Tom Brady and those receivers are not in sync, which is surprising since he has maybe the best wide receiver core in football. Coming in at number 8, I have the Ravens, who not only had to play a tough team in the Buffalo Bills Sunday, they also had to face off with the referees, whose team name is the Zebras. But at the end of the day, they still had opportunities to win that game despite the questionable officiating, and they did not. People want to blame Harbaugh for that loss, for going for it on that 4th down and goal from the 1-yard line. I think it was the right call. I thought it was the right call when he did it, and I think it's the right call now. I think that, your defense hadn't been playing great in that second half. You needed to get a touchdown on the board. All you needed was 1 yard, and you had the best dual threat quarterback in the history of the NFL, and, the playbook is wide open. I question the play call doing a heavy pass look when you could at least show a threat for the run, but even that, the play they did worked. Devin Duvernay was wide open in the back right corner of the end zone, and Jackson did not see him until the very end and threw the ball, and it got picked. And that's the other thing. I think Harbaugh was also banking on he would back the Bills up at their own 1-yard line, and but then Jackson threw the pick in the end zone, so the Bills got it at the 20. So I don't blame that on Harbaugh. Coming in at number 7, I have the Cowboys, who have really shifted the narrative of their season, and they seem to have a spark with Cooper Rush. They got a big one next week against the Rams. I think Dak will play. At least they're saying they are optimistic he will play. But I think if Dak has a rough game and Cooper Rush comes in maybe, it might be Cooper Rush's job. A controversy is brewing in Dallas, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Coming in at number 6, I have the Packers, who have now won 3 straight after that opening day loss. When the Packers lost to the Vikings, I really wasn't that shocked by it. It happened last year. This time it was against the Vikings, and it was less of a bad loss from last year, but excuse me, but regardless, they're 3-1 now, and their defense looks even better than it was last year. Coming in at number 5, I have the Vikings, which, when I first started the rankings today, I did not think I would have the Vikings this high, but, if you really look at it, there really isn't any. The league is very jumbled up. I'm moving away from the Vikings for a second and looking at the league as a whole. It feels like everything's really jumbled up. There's no teams that have pulled away. I mean, if you look at it, other than the Eagles, everyone is from the range of 3-1 to 0. If you take out the Eagles and the Texans, the best team and the worst team, everybody is within 2 games of each other. There's everyone's either 3-1, 2-2, or 1-3. Things are very tight. But regardless, back to the Vikings. I have them in here. Their defense looked very good against the Saints, but it was a dysfunctional Saints team with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Their offense was able to get the job done in those key situations. Right now they look good, but I mean, I'm still not completely convinced about them. Coming in at number 4, I have the Bills, who got the win over the Ravens with some help of the referees. And let me just get this straight though. I mean, a Bills player comes and decks a Ravens player when the ball's coming before the ball arrives, and it's not pass interference. Lamar Jackson is completely across the first down marker, and it's not a first down. Then a dumb roughing the passer call on Josh Allen. I mean, that game was so stupid. But all things aside, the Bills got the job done. You can make an argument to put them at number 3, but Dolphins are still fresh off the win against them. And speaking of, number 3, I have the Dolphins, who lost on Thursday night. That loss to the Bengals really doesn't worry me too much for the Dolphins, and here's why. As I said leading up to the game, I was picking the Bengals because, whenever you play a very tough game in 100-degree weather and come out with an emotional, gritty win, and then have to play on a short week on the road, it's going to be tough. And, they lost the game, and then to add to it, they lost Tua in the second quarter, and they still almost pulled the game out. I mean, the Bengals aren't a terrible team. They're not a good team, but they're not a terrible team. And the Dolphins had to play on a short week after a very, very tiring game against the Bills that they pulled out. I just saw that game as a game that the Dolphins weren't going to win with or without Tua, and I believe they would have won if Tua wouldn't have got hurt looking at the way they were playing. So I don't think it's that concerning of a loss for the Dolphins, but they definitely need to bounce back, and Tua has been ruled out against the Jets. Then coming in at number 2, you got my Kansas City Chiefs, and we got a massive win against the Bucks. Chiefs offense got back on track. The defense held in key situations. Patrick Mahomes is just a magician. The receivers were able to get, he was able to spread the ball around to the receivers, and this was just the ultimate revenge game against the Bucks. Chiefs needed this game over them, and it shows how much they've grown since that Super Bowl, because it's practically the same Bucks team. And then coming in at number 1, I have the Eagles, the only unbeaten team. I'm telling you, this is going to be a tough team to beat down the stretch with that physical front and that physical front on both sides of the ball. That is a very tough O-line, and that's a very tough D-line. I'm telling you, Eagles are going to be a tough team to beat. They are not pretenders, and just because they only beat the Jaguars by 8 at home, it's not the same old Jaguars. And to add to it, it was an emotional game for both sides facing their former coach. That was an impressive victory despite that rough start to the Jaguars. Eagles are for real, trust me. Comment down below what you guys think though about all this. If things are getting interesting. The NFL season now is in full swing. We're no longer in the early stages of it. We're entering the full swing of the season. So yeah, I'm excited, guys. Comment down below what you guys think, and other than that, I'll see you guys next